Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the king of podcasts.
Before we get things started on this Broadcasters Podcast, I want to go ahead and thank all of you that took the time out a couple of weeks ago when I did an episode. And what it is, I don't know. Sometimes when I do these episodes, when it comes to pop music, and the audience I get from this is incredible. Like, I have never seen, I mean, the last time I saw downloads this hot was when I did the story about the manipulation of the Billboard charts and BTS when the song Butter came out and the album came out forthcoming after that. And then I talked about Kate Bush over the last first couple of weeks of the month. What was it, on June 10th and June 17th, episodes 230 and 231. I talked about Kate Bush running up that hill and the Stranger Things phenomenon that created the chart-topping renaissance of this artist and just the fascination for Kate Bush herself. And those shows did so well across the board. I really thank all of you for considering to go and listen to the shows and hearing me talk about it, because I was really impressed. I got some great comments on YouTube, and I really wanted to go and bring those across and discuss them real quickly, because I was really happy to see how people really felt. Like, it was really wonderful to see what everybody said about it. I got some good comments on there, so I want to just take a couple of the comments that I had. Ozymandias wrote and said, "She is one of the greatest originals of British music. There was nothing quite like her before, and there's nothing quite like her since." Moggy Morris wrote, "Thanks for that, for the episode. Passionate, interesting insight." And John Paul Filkins, who gives a nice little history lesson about what was going on when it comes to the music, he says, "Nothing new. UK as the 80s became the 90s, mostly due to the adverts of Levi's 501 jeans, Percy Sledge, Jackie Wilson, and Benny King had #1 hits on the back of those commercials running, and then people just rediscovered the music." Absolutely true. That was weird to me. And I also think Tapa with Heart and Soul, and that was with the Pepe Jeans campaign that made the song very popular in America, and then it crossed back over to the UK once again. And then he also mentions that, hell, even the Clash cashed in on that and scored a #1. Nothing to do with the radio at all. That was weird to me. It feels odd to me because of the fact this is a song from my mid-late teens, making a comeback bigger than it originally was. Then you have the whole US flop / minor hits from the 60s, revived in the UK in the 70s by the Northern Soul scene. Not played on radio until the re-release. Played in the UK dance halls and revived through that. Nice talking, John Paul. Rainier Zufall writes up and says, "Radio airplay doesn't represent what's going on, if it did ever. Similar problem 37 years ago, because she didn't tour at all since 1979. It depended very much on where you lived. If you're aware of Kate Bush or not, some played. If so, at that station was a fan. Most others didn't," talking about the U.S. And then he also goes on Rainier goes on to say as well, "Told me it was 63 years old. That's Kate Bush, not 61. She's going to be 64 July 30th. Thanks for the correction. She's starting her career around 19, but writing her own songs since around 11. So I appreciate all that commentary on that episode and other ones that I did on Kate Bush and how that really went so well. And I am impressed and I'm amazed and just really flattered by the amount of support and really just the amount of interest that everybody had in me talking about it in the last couple of weeks. Really was amazing what everything was being said about that, but it really did get some good commentary, and I can appreciate all that out there. So thank you so much for that. Now, when it comes to new music discovery and how artists we've talked about here on the program, Halsey or FKA Twigs or, pick 'em, the number of artists that have to wait until they have something viral going on social media, on TikTok, to get the record labels to go ahead and budge and actually go and put new music out. Well, if I wanted to get the kind of answers I wanted to get from somebody in the music business that has been around and very successful, I lucked out this week. So earlier this week, on the Cannabis Radio Show, I get the pleasure and the honor to host on a regular basis a weekly show called Blunt Business. So we talk everything about the cannabis part of the cannabis industry in general, everything from finance, investments to the actual process, the whole business, the legislation, all the different things when it comes to social equity. So many different topics we cover on that program. And I really I really am happy with how that show does. It's when I talk about a show that gets a lot of downloads and is one of the most popular shows on cannabis radio, I almost feel like it's, it's not by accident. I know I do a really good job of preparing for that show, and I put a lot of time into it. Well, this week I got lucked out because it's one of those few times I get to go and talk to somebody in the biz, in show business, in the music business. I get to talk to an actual Grammy Award-winning musician. Now, I've had Grammy Award-winning musicians before. I had Omar Akram, who, in the New Age realm, we actually had him on, and it was a great conversation with him, don't get me wrong. And he's doing very well. But my opportunity to go ahead and talk about the new music discovery and all these things, because on Blunt Business, I was bringing on Shavo Odadjian, who's the bassist from System of a Down. And besides that, he also plays bass for the trap group North Kingsley. And he is also looking to go and do his own project as well. But, I don't know if I need to go ahead and explain the success and the popularity of a group that has sold more than 40 million records in their career, going back to the early 2000s, and just thinking about the time frame where alternative and rock music, was still at a good pitch, but then somewhere towards the turn of the millennium, rock music just started going into some decline. We weren't getting as much. And just for whatever reason, all these alternative stations just kind of went and just the music just started fading away. And for whatever reason, it was a shame because a lot of great music and a lot of great artists were not getting the mainstream exposure they once got. System of a Down with BYOB, with Chop Suey, they just had great songs, incredible music. And to think that, obviously they've still been around and they've still have quite a career anyway. There's nothing to be ashamed of. That's for sure. They're doing great work. And Shavo has been moving along and decided to go ahead and do some other work on some other projects, which is great. And he's now running a cannabis line. It's a line called 22 Red. So they do pre-rolls and they're now doing concentrates now, live resin. And he's really very passionate about what he's doing, and he's doing some great work over there. So that interview that I did with him on Blunt Business is a full about 40 some odd minute interview I did with him. That's going to be over on cannabisradio.com. Just search for the show. If you want to hear any episodes of mine on Blunt Business, it's right over there, wherever you find podcasts as well. And on July 13th is when the episode will drop. So in about 2 weeks from recording this episode, you'll be able to hear that interview. But I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what he actually talks about, because I actually went ahead and extracted some questions that I asked him about the music going on today, the music industry in general, and new music discovery, and the streaming and social media aspects of trying to get your music out there. I get to ask a couple of set of questions that I kind of sandwiched into the interview with Shavo, and like he was so open about it, it was so great. And I was just really happy to get this information, and I did not want to hold on to this. It's one of those things, don't sleep on the interview. Like, the interview is going to be on Blunt Business because it's going to be a big audience that's going to pick it up there. But I felt like on this program, I had the opportunity. Let me go ahead and present a portion of that interview right here for you right now. Not like I've done before, why it make you wait till the end of the interview for the interview. I'm not going to wait for the end of the show. I'm going to play it for you now. And I want you to go ahead and check it out for yourselves. It's about 17 minutes. And when I come back, I got some other things to go and talk about. Let me give you a quick lineup of what comes up after I talk to Shavo. So I'll also talk to you about radio and how they need to be targeting younger audiences, a super session that Sean Ross over at Radio Insight does about that. Then we'll talk about where NPR and Edison Research has done their 2022 Smart Report, some information that goes around that. Podcasting information where Gen Z audiences spend twice as much time with podcasts as listeners overall say. And there's other things that are going on. The end of the 2020 movie delay mayhem, because most of the movies that were held back in 2020 because of the pandemic, they've all been released. The last remaining blockbuster left to put out is Minions: The Rise of Gru, which is this weekend. And then there's more. The newspaper industry falling apart. Journalists sense turmoil in the industry amid continued passion for their work. That's in the Pew Research Center, some study they talked about there. And Also, since I'm talking about cannabis a little bit, broadcasters see a major step forward in Congress allowing cannabis ads on the radio. We're going to talk about that. There's a few other things we're going to talk about as well along with that, but that's just the gist of what I have coming up on the Broadcasters Podcast. Coming up after I go and play you this interview that I just recently had this week with Shavo Odadjian from System of a Down. Enjoy. When it comes to music, when I think of System of a Down, I really think of the fact that it's one of the last groups of a great era of rock music that I don't know what happened. I know people can say that Woodstock 99 was a contributing factor and just the level of just where music was going. But, you know, some genres might get a little bit of a decline. I mean, even hip hop right now in the American can be considered a little bit of a decline. Now we're seeing, and I'll talk about that later on in the interview. But when I think of this, you know, if you didn't have 22 Red and the business you're working on right now, I mean, could you imagine where it was, you know, decades into your career, what you're doing with what you've been doing with System of a Down, where the legacy of what would have preceded you, that we don't have that right now. Something happened where that just broke off and rock went to underneath the mainstream.
Yeah, it did. We are one of the last bands that went mainstream being so heavy. But there's still bands out like Korn. They're coming back. I think there's a huge comeback of rock right now. I've been listening to a lot of the younger bands like Horror and Knocked Loose. And I mean, these bands really do have this old era sound, but they're doing it with a new vibe. Like Horror has a very punk rock feel, like Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains feel with Prodigy and industrial stuff mixed to it. Then you got Knocked Loose that has like Slayer, Pantera, like all those cool moments, Sepultura moments, all in one. And so there's a lot of cool vibes happening right now. I think it's eras never go full stream forever. It's always an up and a down, you know, and it's all good. You know, you just got to roll with it. It's hills and valleys, bro. We're in a valley going up a hill right now, you know, so it's okay because a few years back, it was really horrible. I was like, what's going on? You know, I didn't like anything out. I wouldn't even listen to new music anymore. I was listening to my old things, or I was listening to podcasts, or I was listening to like video stuff, talk radio. I was listening to books online. It's because music wasn't exciting me anymore. And then when I started North Kingsley, I started listening to bands again just to be inspired. Because, you know, writing it's like reading, you know, like when you write, if you're a writer, a book writer, or an article writer, you know, like the journalist, you have to read in order to be inspired to write good. And the same with music. If you're a songwriter, you need to listen to music. You need to have music in your ears all the time so things can inspire you to write better songs and different songs, that's my case anyways.
I want to also make this point too. It's not as if that rock has completely been off the radar. No. Albums are still very much prominent, and people are buying by the truckloads. And the tours are nonstop. And
the tours are crazy. Yeah, the tours are sold out. All of them are. People want to see it. You know, this is how I know that rock is coming back. Guitar sales are up. Kids are buying guitars again. So if kids are buying guitars, that means kids want to be rock stars again. It's not an old passe where everyone wants to get a face tattoo and grab a mic with auto tune and say stupid words, which is what happened for a while. And just like hair metal, when everyone started doing it in the late 80s and it fell apart, and then Nirvana came out and killed it, right? And then a new era started. Is what's happening to that mumble rap shit, you know, like there was good ones, and then all of a sudden everyone copied. So everyone became the same. It became big slush, whatever you want to call it, big pile of mud of stuff, big puddle of mud. And, pardon the pun. And because of that, they're falling now. I know that it's still up there, but I see the decline happening because when people are making fun of it, that means it's already getting to a level where it's losing that spark.
But there's also a lot of barriers in the space in America. I will just say this: there's some barriers within where that mainstream, that rock does not get allowed back into that mainstream like it was for so long, because of the fact is the radio industry, the traditional radio industry is flawed because of corporations, because of private equity. I can go on for hours on that.
Yeah, of course, but you're right. That's why you have a lot to say, of course.
Now, the other thing too is I also have a podcast I do independent called the Broadcasters Podcast. I remember talking to one DJ that was running a station in Arizona. He was the morning DJ there, and I forget the name of the station, but it was Dave Pratt. And I just remember when I asked about at that time, because he had left rock radio to go into a different format. Or he just left the radio altogether. But he had done morning show for a rock station there, and I forget the name of it is, for 30 years.
Yeah.
But he said that Rob is because the people that were doing the instruments, the money was to be made in Nashville, in country, because rock was not as highly profitable as it once was. So the newer artists, they said, well, let's go to Nashville because they're all playing with instruments there.
Those are artists that follow money and trends. I mean, that's not too much to say about those artists. You know, if they're just doing whatever is popular at the moment, you're not supposed to do that. A good artist goes against the grain, swims against the current. And then if they believe in something, you know, for example, System. I mean, who would have thought in 97 that a band like us would be on K-Rock? K-Rock was still in 97 playing new wave stuff. They were playing like alternative rock. They were playing Blink 182. They were playing pop punk. They were playing stuff like that. And all of a sudden, one DJ had the balls to play our demo because he heard it somewhere and said, this is my catch of the day, was Jed the Fish.
Oh, yeah.
And it was done after that, bro. It was just like he played it and people just said, what the hell is that? And we didn't conform, not at all. We didn't change. We didn't do something that might be okay for the radio to play. The radio conformed. Yes. The radio switched up. So if you keep up what you're into, if you drive that nail in, you know, you got to just do it and do it good. And if you're good enough, you'll get seen and heard. People will see and hear you. They will. It's just in today's era, it's a different way of doing it. Today, right. Yeah, we can go there.
New music discovery. And yes. I've talked about this on my other program. Like I said, the other thing I've talked about over and over, and I've hit it over the head. So radio needs to become a vessel of new music discovery once again. TikTok has taken that over. And we already know that artists right now are upset because record labels are saying, no, you need to make a viral TikTok to get your album released or get a single pushed out. No, that's not the way it should be.
But that's the way it is.
Right.
It shouldn't, but that's your opinion. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's an opinion. Because every era has its own thing. There was a time where being on MTV was the way it had to be. Yes. It had to be the way. If you were on MTV, you were selling millions of records. For example, when Chop Suey got hit on MTV, when we did that video, right?
Yeah.
We were selling 100,000 albums a week, maybe more, a week. And then it would not be aired. We'd have 10,000 albums sold. Then it would air 5 times. We'd sell 150,000 albums. I was watching SoundScan, bro. I was watching what's happening. Nowadays, it's streaming, right? So there's no more sound. I mean, there is SoundScan, but now it's all about the streams. So it's all about that TikTok right now but you shouldn't be doing it for TikTok. That's the same as a band conforming to the radio or to conforming to MTV to become where they're going. No, we didn't do that, like I said. So you could still be a great artist and use TikTok to get your shit out. Because if that's the way, you have to find the way of the days. You can't say, well, it was like that before, so I'm going to do it that way. You're going to fall behind. So you have to find the tools of today to get your music out. As long as your music's good, though. No one is saying conform your music, change your music, and become, that's selling out. That's the old term, sell out. That's what that is when you move accordingly with your style or your thing that you're doing. It's like an artist painting a picture because those kinds of pictures are selling right now. That's bullshit. It's what's in you. It's what you believe in. So anyways, I was thinking, yes, TikTok is the way, but so's shows, you could still be doing local shows, but that's also where you come from. You know, there's like great bands out there that don't have LA. They don't have the Roxy, the Whiskey, the Dragonfly, all those places like we had to play, you know? So it's what's in your means. So think of the band or the artist that's playing that's from the Bible Belt somewhere where there's nothing happening over there. Right. And all they have is their little phone or their camera and they have TikTok. That's what they have to use. And it's even easier now because before a radio station or MTV programmer had to find you. This is you, is all about you. And if you release enough stuff, someone will one day, the right person will hear it and repost it. And all it takes is a good repost for your shit to go viral, meaning it's good enough to go viral. And I'm not talking about I'll talk about this too, because I'm upset at TikTok and I'm upset at Reels, Instagram Reels, because what they do is they're teaching people to be copycats, because they're saying, oh, if you follow this trend, you will get more views. Bullshit. That's like, it should be where if you're original and you're badass and no one can do what you're doing, you should get more views. You know what I mean? Not do this lip sync this audio clip or dance to this same song. And there's like literally a million people dancing to that same song in the same moves, expecting to get views and to be noticed. It's crazy.
Right. Virality needs to not be algorithm based. It needs to be organic based. When with
organic and originality.
Right. Yeah.
Originality should cause virality, not copy, not imitation.
Right. No rewarding
like karaoke.
Rewarding for replicating. So every other person I see that's a great drummer or a guitarist and they just want to go ahead and play some riff or groove off of some record from years ago. No, please make new content. For the love of God, please make something new. You're
have
good.
People copy you. Have people copy you. Don't copy others.
Yes.
When you copy others, you become one of the bunch, one of many. You're a dime a dozen. No one will recognize you. No one will find you. No one, here's the best word. No one will appreciate you. You need to be appreciated to get to where you want to go. If you really want to go somewhere, that's the key. To be appreciated, to do someone a favor. You know what a favor is? To give them eargasms, to make them happy with your music, to make them happy with your art. That's a gift you're giving to someone. You know how they say, start a company, you have to find a cure for something and then they'll do it. But like, let's say you know what I mean? It's music's the same way. Music's the same way. Don't do what's already out there. Do it. And you know what? It just takes balls and persistence to do it, you know? And of course some talent, but it really takes, you just need to be persistent, consistent as well. I tell everyone that I give kids advice all the time. I think consistency is the key to success. It really is. A little bit of passion and consistency and drive. Just keep going, you know, and especially today's era, there's so many ways to be discovered. It's in your fingertips. You can go live. You can go live and show your band rehearsing. You can do cool little things with your band to get recognized, not copy other people's videos. That's not going to recognize you. And no one's going to get recognized by that. Only by being copycats. They're going to be like, okay, they did it well. Okay, so what? They did something that's already been done well.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I want to make a few other things and we're going to talk about 22 Red after the break. But I don't know. I didn't know I was going to go in this route, but I love this. I could talk for hours with you on this, Shavo. I wish we had the time, seriously. But I will say this one thing, you know, along that advice you just said, I would also say to new artists, please beware of the record labels because they're all buying the publishing rights of all these legacy artists. Because you know what they want to do? They want to make you interpolate all those records that they have and they're going to encourage you. Oh, you should take this track and reinterpolate it, you know? Yeah, so we can make money off of that. We'll get a cut of what you do. They're not all like Kate Bush, where she got all the songwriting rights, the production rights, the master rights, and now Running Up That Hill is a song. Once again, 37 years later, she's making all the money. It's all. I
have life experience with that. So we were young kids and got taken advantage of early on. You know, of course, it's taken time for us to gain anything back, but it was a uphill battle. It really was, because in the era that we got signed in, that shit wasn't happening the way it is now, where we'd be tenfolds. We'd have more money if it was today's world, you know, because, you know, we signed to a big label like Sony, you know, which it was good at the time for us. I mean, we used the machine. We used the machine to get to where we are, because at the time you needed the machine, you know, it was 94.
But there's a great appetite for rock music, and not alternative the way they're kind of putting it here. Guitar, you know, drum, bass driven, instrumental, you know, put somebody on stage, rock music. Let's get that back. Because, I mean, I look on Spotify. You guys have 12 million active listeners. Chop Suey, the song itself, has almost 1 billion streams to date.
It's 22 years old. It's 22 years old. It's crazy.
It's great. It still sounds great now. And it doesn't feel old.
Thank you. Well, that's timeless shit, you know, and I'm proud to be a part of that, bro. You know, I really am. I'm very grateful and very honored to be, but I'm also proud, bro. I'm proud. It's nothing that you can like not look at and not credit. You know, it's really something special that happened. And, you know, I look forward to creating more stuff. I'm
a fan, man. It was like, And I was saying to myself, I want more of this again. Like, listen, thank you, Travis Barker, for getting some of these younger artists to kind of do pop punk again, things like that. Okay, I appreciate that. But I want a groundswell. I want a reawakening back to the mainstream. But like you said, also don't do it because of just whatever label says to you. A proper crossover that all of a sudden this song has such a groundswell. Well, guess what? The pop stations are going to have to play it. Everybody else has to play it and accept the fact that it's back and here to stay.
It has to be undeniable.
How many young people do you see out there, teens and 20s, that I see right now? They got shirts from rock bands. And I mean, the funniest TikTok I seen was the one that there was a girl wearing a Nirvana shirt, and then the mother's playing a Nirvana record, and it's like, she didn't even know what the record was. Like,
that's awful. That's happening everywhere right now because those shirts are like, we have System of a Down shirts that people wear don't have no clue that we're a band, that's a band shirt. They think it's a brand from the 90s, like a brand, the R, not a band. So it is what it is, dude. The Kardashians were wearing Sepultura t-shirts and obituary t-shirts. So you know what I mean? It is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, it's trending. It's trending right now. There's System shirts. I made samples that are like $1,000 right now. It's crazy.
Hey, just a thought, but that's the appeal right there. The appeal, the appetite for the music, and then just to coalesce with the brand. It's great. Shavo, thank you for making time. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, bro. My pleasure.
Oh, I could have gone on for hours, man. Like I said, but again, then I would just start thumping against radio like I do on my other podcast. That's basically what I do it for. Seriously, because I'm a radio fan and I want it to come back. Listen, I'm glad that Kevin Weatherly got back to K-Rock. Maybe he could turn that station back around again. Maybe, hopefully, when the next North Kingsley record comes out, he's going to play.
It'll be on. That'd be great. There's a great DJ on there. He's also on MTV. His name is Kevin Keeney. That dude's badass. That dude's playing some good music, and he still keeps that soul alive. The soul you're talking about, he keeps it alive. So listen to him. He's good.
Excellent. Hey, thank you again for being on. 22red.com. Thank you for making time and all these. We'll keep in track and we'll definitely keep in touch. And any new announcements, please let us know about it.
Thank you, brother. My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, like I said, there's new announcements on 22. We're going to be releasing the pre-roll packs. Finally, we're calling them personals. There'll be 0.5s. We're going to sell an eighth at a time. So 7.5s in one pack, all rolled for you. And it'll be nug run, no shake whatsoever. It will be what I'm smoking because that's how I smoke myself.
Fantastic.
I grind my nugs into joints and I keep about 7 to 12 joints on me at all times. So I'm trying to give that back so people feel how that is. I know there's brands that do it, but we're not doing right now. We're not going to start with the infused. We're not starting with shake with some infused stuff on it just to make it potent. We're going to actually have potent strains, natural. I'm all about the natural.
Exactly. So again, I'm here with 22 Red founder, Grammy Award winner, Shavo Odadjian, of course, best known also from System of a Down fame, the bassist. Thank you for being on. Man, I'm so happy to have you on, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Just thinking about it, the last interview I actually put on this program was, start of January 2021. I haven't done anything like that in almost 18 months. That's crazy. Sophie Bowman, for those of you who are taking trivia, and you might be one of those aficionados that actually follow this program each and every episode. And if you do, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Anyway, well, let's go ahead and move along into some stories that are actually going on that are of interest to me this week. Into the headlines, we begin, starting with RadioInsight.com. And Sean Ross always gives me something worthy to go ahead and catch on with because he's always looking at the younger audience and what pop music is out there and things like that as well. So now, he talked about that in early May, there was the Canadian Music Week conference that had a panel of international programmers discussing the issue of targeting younger audiences. And that's been a challenge for broadcasters and has become only more noticeable over the last 2 years. And programmers from 4 major youth brands, including SiriusXM's new TikTok Radio, talked about facing these challenges. And some of the highlights they talked about are following. One that he asked about was, what are stations doing specifically to target younger listeners? So first they talked to Kiss UK's content director, Rebecca Frank. She says, we're trying to attract those audiences to the brand and not just the radio station. For us, the mantra of right content, right platform, right time is really pertinent to the KISS network. They have 3 stations, one of which is under 25 and clutter-free. Pure Music. It's real expert influencers who are hosting. TikTok's our priority social brand at the moment, but are no repurposed clips of our radio shows. It's important that we are native on those platforms, not just a radio operator on social media. Then they talked to Karen Steele, who runs CKFM, Virgin Radio in Toronto, they said, we made a decision to almost future-proof what we're doing. Everything we do is to provide that companionship with our listeners in a way that can't be matched in real time by most streaming services. We're having the conversations that matter to them and that connect in a way that they can see themselves or hear themselves in the personalities on our radio stations. Louis Diaz, who does Top 40 and Rhythmic Top 40, we used to call it Rhythm Crossover back in the day, for Cumulus Media, says, we wanted to create a personality-driven day part that connects first on the FM because radio lost that a long time ago with consolidation and cutbacks. We're slowly coming back to creating personalities on the radio, then repurposing that content because we're still on step one. As far as having unique TikTok curators for our channels, we're steaming full speed ahead, but we're not there yet. Okay. And so the American broadcaster talks about they want to create personality-driven day parts. But we're not talking about the music. Do you understand what's going on here? The younger audience issue. You're not even playing the music. So you think that the audience you're going to get is going to be from the personalities playing Recurrence or Gold? I mean, how much new music are you playing, and how quickly are you turning around new music and discovering it? That's my point. But American radio doesn't want to think about that. In the meantime, the stations up north or to our east in Europe or Canada, they're actually doing the different route. Because they realize to do that, pure music. Look at that from right there in Kiss in the UK. Because the UK stations get it. Now, they ask one more question here. Nights used to be prime time for the top 40 format. Do they still matter? And Diaz says that in the last decade, we managed to move away from that with voice tracks or just playing music. But their executive vice president of programming, Brian Phillips, and him got together to change the trend. They want to create a night show that was a prequel to the morning syndicated Burt show. So they now have the Elliot and Nina night show targeted to 10, 15 years younger. It's like the difference between 1883 and Yellowstone. So you're going to do a night show that's like a morning show. That never worked. So I don't understand what they're trying to do here. Look, some of the best nighttime programming there has been, I'll tell you one of the best people that ever did it. To me, see, Night Docs used to have things where they'd have certain contests, the top 8 at 8. It's good or it's not good. Those kind of like surveys, like, have 2 songs. Okay, here's your champion, here's your challenger. They would all have that. And then you would have like either like bed checks or things like that. You would just have certain things that would go on to create that camaraderie with the audience. And then you'd have certain shows that were nighttime that were just a little bit raunchier and a little bit better. And one of the best examples before we went to mornings was Bubba the Love Sponge. Bubba the Love Sponge on WFLZ, the Power Pig, Tampa Bay. I mean, he was there for a long time, and he did the night show before. I think it was in Chicago. I think it was at B96, and he also did it in, I want to say Kansas City, I forget. But he made his way to Tampa. And he would theme every day. I think it was Redneck Mondays, No Panties Thursdays. Like, it was all these crazy names and stuff. And he would have this whole shtick going on. And he would just, like, he was going out to the clubs every night. He'd, hang out, talking to girls. The girls would be listening to his show. And all the guys would listen in for him, talking to the girls because they're like, he's trying to learn, they're learning stuff from him. All this kind of stuff. It was just raunchy. It was, dirty. And that's why even, Howard Stern put him on his channel for a while when they were there. But we're not going to do raunchy, of course. You know who also did a really good job, too? After him, at 10 o'clock at night, was the Tom Steele show, where he would just kind of do advice. It was kind of like a Love Line. Love Line was also a popular show at night on these type of stations that would do really well, and people would kind of get into it. It was also a show that, I wasn't really for me, but Duncan McAllister Live was like that, too. Where it was just interaction. One of the night shows that really stands out to me? Delilah. And that show's syndicated forever. And everybody that's an adult contemporary station, you might as well run it because you have nothing else to work off of. But Delilah's live, right, for the most part. And she does a good job. And people listen to that show. You know who also has a show like that? And they always play it at night, too, on the older demographic stations. John Tesh. After Midnight with Blair Garner. There's another good example, too. But these people are not doing that. So now, let's talk about TikTok radio. And they talked to Marie Steinbach, who's director of music programming at SiriusXM's TikTok radio. So Sean Ross asks about the station and how it's different. And she said, Marie Steinbach, I work daily with the TikTok music editorial team to curate our playlists. We have 5 different creators that are on our channel daily. We don't have any specific times that they're on. You'll hear from 4 different creators every hour. Then how do you find the music? And she says, we're playing songs that are trending and taking off on listeners for you pages. We look at the data we receive from TikTok to see what's trending. It's not all new music, which I'm sure everyone's aware of. We might have a 70s song followed by something brand new from Harry Styles, followed by something from the early 2000s. It's era-less and genre-less. I'm trying to break the mold of the traditional channels that we have on SiriusXM. And see, you can have a channel that can actually kind of go full jack format, which is where some of these stations that are playing music go on. They should have a bit of a wide range of music out there so people can just discover new and old. Like that format should be out there. I'm sure there's a lot of stations that could change a format right now and give this a shot for like a year or two and see what it does. You always have one of those experimental stations. This should be the format they try. But I would still want to take the music that's coming out that's new, that's being responded well on TikTok, and then put it over here. Because we know, while Marie has a nice point here, the thing is that you're still worrying about the music that's coming out. But the record labels and the musicians, they want to get their new music played first. It's not so much about interpolation. It's not so much about having to hear older music and it's just getting repurposed. There are some songs that might be gold or recurrent and you can add into a station with newer music, but include it. And you could do things like that and still make a station that very stands out. But where's new music discovery? Because on a TikTok feed, you only hear a portion of the song. Why don't you, on the radio, play the whole song? And then you could put other things on. And widen your playlist to have some of those recurrents that are coming on that some people just might catch up on and just say, okay, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And if some songs are not, something that you feel like you want to just put out there in rotation, then, like I said, take a night show, put it out there, make it something that people can judge on, vote upon if they like it or not, exit or respect it, jump it or dump it, whatever you want to call it. Bring that kind of gimmick back. Seriously, Power Wars. So Power 96, the Power Wars, the champion, the challenger. I used to love that. And they all had that kind of thing going on. Steinbach also talks about, and some songs play for only 30 seconds. Steinbach says that with a lot of these songs, if you hear the part that's trending, it's really catchy, but the rest of the 3 to 4 minute song might not be recognizable enough. So we'll just play the 30-second snippet that's trending. The song in the zeitgeist, but we don't want to turn younger audiences away when they don't know the rest of the song. I'm sorry. Give it a sample. Like, really, just to play 30 seconds of a song? You're doing the musicians injustice. If it's an established artist or if it's a song that's really catching on and you know the rest of the song is good, be the music director, take charge and play it. What are you waiting for? Why are you having to go ahead and succumb to what TikTok does? You're a different platform. You're meant to play longer form content. So do that. Then Ross asks, so how should channels that are not TikTok radio acknowledge streaming? Well, Diaz says streaming is a big force of this. A big number of streams are driven by an artist's particular fandom. Yes, legacy artists. Thank you. Harry Styles fans will make sure a song is #1 in streaming everywhere. Does that mean everybody over the age of 25 is familiar with that song? The answer is most likely no. Well, then whose fault is that? That is on radio. He says in Call Out, songs still take 4 to 6, 7 weeks to become familiar with anybody over 18. Well, if you're not playing in a rotation, of course it won't. Because radio people, they don't get this kind of thing. They're disconnected. Yeah, they have to do the 4 to 6, 7 weeks. And he's saying that because that's what they're forcing it to be. That's their trend. They don't want to go ahead and take a song and let it run out because they feel like there's only so many songs they can go ahead and audience measure test and research and then put out there. Only from bona fide artists. Okay? He goes on to say that the record label business plan with streaming and DSPs are often out of sync with FM radio. They're ready to move on because a song is now 60% of their DSPs, while songs are just starting to test, even with teenagers. We just cannot keep with the speed that the DSPs are going. It will never work. All right. it still comes down to the fact that you're trying to follow the record label. When the album comes out and people are streaming it, take it. If you want to bring a song and resurrect it back when the record label says that, then do that. Why are you taking the cues from the record label anymore? They're not even servicing you anymore. So why are you taking their cues? They don't spend any money with you. If they were spending money with you, I would actually not mind to follow the record label business plan. But they don't spend money on promoting the albums on there, which I guarantee you, if the record labels would actually play commercials and produce commercials for said artists, so you could hear a clip of a song or a snippet or several clips of an artist's new album, and you got to hear that, and then make it available for people to listen to. Check it out on iTunes, check it out on Amazon Music or whatever. Buy it now. You're telling me that people will not stick around and listen to commercials if you actually had the record labels playing the music themselves? How many times did you hear a music record store? They always had commercials. Either Sam Goody, Musicland, Tower Records. They always had music that were kind of featuring. I mean, look at Target, Walmart. They all had that. Sears back in the day, they all had that, where they used to go and play clips of Kmart used to have that. The K-Tel library of music compilations. You'd have those things going on all the time, and then you'd hear that music being played back. And I guarantee you that the audience will retain and listen to those commercials. Not the ones for Progressive and Geico they've heard over and over, and not these flat, bland commercials that the production folks that don't take any time to really put any real time into the commercials because they're not allowed to be creative. The corporate types that make them have to run these sloshy commercials that are being run on a revenue share. Or because they're trades for running some programming of theirs that's being run by your own company. I mean, come on. That's not even thinking right. Andrew Forsyth, who's a radio consultant for Luminate, he says, you see that when all 10 Drake songs are streaming, that those songs tend to go away. But the song that radio has picked up gets a second win, and you start to see it rebound on the streaming side. So catch it as it happens. What you do is you don't play all the 10 songs of Drake's. You play Massive, and you probably play Falling Back or Jimmy Cooks, and that's it. You don't have to play other records. And by the way, Drake and Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift and all these other artists and Ed Sheeran and Megan Thee Stallion and Doja Cat, they keep putting out new music. You can go ahead and continue to put the new music out there because these musicians, these artists, they continue to keep cranking out singles. And if they're good, let them play. If Dua Lipa has another single to gun feature out there, play it too. Keep going. You should not have to wait for the record labels to kind of move along with a sluggish, sloth-like pace that they have now anymore. Now, Sean Ross asks a great question. Knowing all this, how should radio have handled the song from Disney's Encanto, which was a number one song for I forget how many weeks at the start of the year? We don't talk about Bruno. Running Up That Hill had not made the pop culture comeback in May when they recorded this taping, this panel. So Diaz then talks about there was Frozen. There was the Hamilton cast album. This has happened before where songs get overexposed in movies before radio can deal with it. Is it a design flaw in radio? On the day of the panel, Lady Gaga's Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick had just come out. We're going to see that stream. Why is that okay and Bruno not okay? It's a unique problem that we have inherited in radio. At some point, we need to get past. Novelty records used to play all the time. Hell, how the hell did Disco Duck, the Ketchup Song, or Macarena make it across? Or Gangnam Style? How do you think those songs came across anyway? If it's novelty, if it's part of radio, then just play it anyway. Why are you so afraid that Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill is a 37-year-old song and you can't play it? Get over yourselves. If the masses want to hear it, you're not supposed to play, because as long as you're playing a CHR style, then you're succumbing to media base and the Ryan Seacrest style of music, okay? Which is not him. He's just the focal point. He's the figurehead of what is everything that's wrong with pop radio in the U.S. in general. I'm just saying it's fact. But we don't talk about Bruno could have been played. Listen, even I listened to it on the chart countdown in the UK on the official chart. And you know what? I didn't mind that song be out there. And, Surface Pressure, I heard that song too. It was fine. The Family Madrigal, I heard that. It was also fine. It actually blended just fine. It wasn't a big a deal to hear those songs. Listen, just because it might be a little bit cringeworthy for some of the audience out there to listen to and are like, ugh. And what? If the audience wants to listen to it and it's popular and it's streaming like crazy, play it. It's not hard for Top 40 Radio to come back and do something with itself. It can be new music discovery again. But these people right now, they just don't get it. And I'm breaking down every argument they got right here. And I believe what I'm saying is right. Why am I at a station right now trying to go and create the same magic? Because they don't pay. I probably make more money doing this than I do working some programming director's job at some station in whatever market 200 something, 100 and something, where I will not be heard unless I could get myself on streaming and really make a difference. But, there's that. Now, he talks more about the Mother Dollar Coalition. There's some other questions he asks, and I'm not going to worry about that. But now here's the other part. And Sean Ross asks this. Radio didn't ask for the order from younger listeners for a long time. How do we know they'll listen now, even if we ask? Great question. And Diaz, now let me give the names once again. Louis Diaz, who is VP of Top 40 and Rhythmic Top 40 of Cumulus Radio, when asked this question, he says it's possible, but it's going to be in very limited windows. If the window's between 6 and 7:45 a.m., you have that small window to try to get them exposed to your product again, and try to get them to come back at 3 p.m. Nowhere in there should we think that they even know we exist or what we've been doing for the last 25 years. So you're giving up on them. You're giving up. It doesn't have to be that way. You can still get the kids to listen to their cars. They don't have to necessarily go ahead and put on the Bluetooth. They don't have to do that. There are some people that still want to listen to the radio anyway. And you know what? Some of them are discovering older music because that's the only thing that's out there that's popular and people are listening to on radio anyway is older music. So there's a lot of discovery there. Sure. But it still doesn't matter because you're not giving that audience what they want. Make your station sound good. The engineers, please fix your station so they sound good. So at least when you have somebody that doesn't have a car that doesn't have a great radio or a great stereo or doesn't have HDA radio capability, make it sound good. Man, when I think of Power 96 or I think of 93.3, the Power Pig, and what they used to do to kind of overmodulate and power their stations, like they would push those Optimods, the Orban Optimods, to like crazy numbers to make sure it sounded good. And they would overmodulate a little bit, but it sounded good. And you'd hear the music and it would just come in even better. Because remember, even when you're listening to the music, there's a difference between what you're going to listen to and streaming and then how you enhance the music and you make it even sound louder and wider and broader. And then you get even more out of the music when you're hearing it compressed on a radio station. But nobody's thinking about that part. And there was a time maybe when you used to go and play the songs a little bit faster. Remember that gimmick we used to have where certain songs, especially in the 90s into the 2000s, you would hear the songs being pitched up 2%. Remember the little octave push? And all those stations should do that for the younger formats. And they would play like 16, 20 songs in a row. And you know what happens? Then it makes it kind of tough for you to kind of reprogram yourself. That little manipulation, make it tougher for you to go listen to it on a CD or somewhere else. Because then you put on a CD or you try to listen to an MP3 player and then your music just sounds slow and just like, and that's the problem. But nobody thinks about these little things anymore of what people used to do to listen to the radio and how we would continuously listening on a regular basis. Did you forget what you used to do when you were young and what you'd listen to? The same habits can apply here. The music is the only thing that changes. It shouldn't be the way you do it. Radio used to be a young medium. It used to be for younger people. What happened there? Why is it not that way anymore? I don't understand that. Moving along. So let's now go back to Rebecca Frank, who's with Kiss in the UK. And she says it's about discoverability. Their thumb is constantly drifting on a mobile phone. If we try to push them from a mobile phone to a box in a room, that's not going to happen for us. No, that's why you need to make sure your streaming is doing well on your apps. And just make something where your apps are much more desirable to get on there. Now, iHeartRadio and Odyssey and the other apps are doing that to put podcasting on their platforms, which is a smart thing to do. Then one of the other panelists says they're looking at socials as an opportunity to bring people back into real-time listening. Anyways, don't worry about that. Look, we already have enough DJs that are out there on TikTok that just don't get much of an audience. And, there's just a way you need to go and work that out. But at least they're trying to get on there. But there are not a lot of radio people that catch on that well. You got to figure out how to do that. And then Steinbach, who's with TikTok Radio, says, we get a lot of feedback that listeners are finding our channel through ride shares. I don't know if it's just because the drivers are choosing TikTok as in the title, or they just want to connect with younger listeners. But like Louis said, we're just trying to figure out those small snippets of the day where we can connect with them. Hearing themselves and seeing themselves reflected in the programming and the on-air talent is important, and we've really been trying to do that as well. Listen, I'm an Uber driver, so I can speak on rideshare. On the weekends, I do Uber. And I specifically take 3 playlists to use to do the show, or to really just to entertain my drivers or my passengers on the way. One is Timeless Hits, and you can find these all on Spotify. Just look for King of Podcasts. You'll find all my playlists. But I do it like radio stations. Timeless Hits is more like a jack format. Anything from the start of the rock and roll era up until the 90s. And it's kind of like a mix of adult contemporary mixed in with, let's say, pop, let's say a little bit of country, a little bit of punk, a little bit of rock, metal, all mixed in. But it's really just songs that I just feel like they really just come out in timely, and just a lot of major artists on there. When I got Phil Collins in there, lots of Elton John, lots of Billy Joel, things like that. And it's like, I'm also looking at other artists when I think about all the disco music song going on in there. So like a Thelma Houston, or if I want to put something from Gladys Knight, if I want to put something from Lou Rawls, all these different artists out there, Barry White, it's all in there. All in there for people to listen to. Then I have one that's called the Soundtrack of South Florida. And that's more of a, like I would say it's a rhythmic crossover, like a rhythmic CHR. And that's everything we used to listen to from like the late days, mid 80s of Miami Vice days, where house music, even in Miami, was starting to get very prominent. And then the bass music was getting very prominent by that point too. All the way to current day. Because I took the stations I listened to a lot from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now. And I said, well, what would they still be programming for music if they were still on? So I took 4 stations that I was I listened to a lot growing up. Power 96, 99 Jams, Hot 105. But Hot 105 before was R&B and oldies, because before Power 96, Hot 105 was the younger station. That was a station that played dance, the early signs of hip hop, and top 40. That was what they did then. And then I also wanted to include Party 93.1, which is the same deviation of 95.3 Party, which Phil Michaels Treba used to program down here in South Florida, which was all the dance music that was very prominent. And so I included that into the mix. And then the new stuff is what I call Mega Miami, and that's just new. That's Euro dance that never gets played here. It's reggaeton, it's Dominican dembo, it's pop, and a little bit of rock in there. And that's pretty much it. It's just new music across the board. And you know what? When I have people of various ages in the car, I think I could do a really good job, because I get a lot of good ratings for music in my car. I make it a big point that the music is a nice attraction to have for the ride. And so for the new music, I get a lot of good compliments on the music I play on in the car. And I'm like, and I have people asking, what's that playlist? Because I'm really curating it. I'm changing that music every week. Every time New Music Friday comes along, I am just changing the music. I'm rotating it. I'm shuffling it. I'm just making it better. And I do it constantly. And it works. And that's a younger audience. And a younger audience I'm talking about, yes, the younger audience they care about, it's not the 12 to 18s. They want 25-54. They want 18 to 34. I get it. you can still get that audience. And I've had more than enough 18 to 34-year-olds in my car that will be impressed with the music I play. And if I put that on a radio station and I programmed it right with right commercials, it would succeed. And you could do new music discovery, and you can also program golden recurrence and put a wider playlist together to make it sound good. My soundtrack of South Florida really does a good job of that, because when I put the new songs in there that I believe would have been played today, if all these stations stayed in the same style format and the same kind of excitement that was, decades ago, if they still had that kind of fire, that kind of energy, and the jocks were there, it would be a different story. And I think we would have stations that would do very well today and not worry about voice tracking and not interacting with your audience. It doesn't mean you have to interact with your audience over the phone anymore. Of course we don't. We got DMs. We got Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Sure. We got all these different other routes of people that are checking in, text messaging. Of course. So communicate with the younger audience as such and tell them, hey, you got a radio in your car. You could turn that on and listen to it. And if you get them to say, hey, this sounds good. Listen, there's enough young people that know how to turn on a cable television box or a TV. They can find apps. They can find your app. And they can easily turn on the radio and say, oh, this thing right here. You just turn it on, you turn the volume up, and you just move this little knob and it takes you to the number. I could do that. Radio makes this too hard. You guys are making it too difficult. Do you understand that? Way too difficult you're making this. But that's kind of expected, par for the course. Wow, man, I didn't realize I was going to go so long with this. I'm done. I mean, I actually thought I was going to have time for all the other stories. I got so many stories left I didn't even get to. So I guess we'll wait. I can hold all these stories to next week. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take about one story I wanted to make sure I brought on. But man, I had a stack of stuff here and I didn't even get to any of it. But I guess we'll just hold it off for next week. That's okay. Then that's also because I had the Shavo interview that I wanted to play tonight, which was a nice little change up. Okay, this story I got to bring up because we're going to keep it on radio. Broadcasters are seeing a major step forward in Congress toward allowing cannabis ads on radio from InsideRadio.com. They said that the House Appropriations Committee advanced for next year the Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Bill. It will include language that would prevent the FCC from taking administrative action against broadcasters that accept cannabis ads, as long as cannabis has been legalized in the state or jurisdiction in which a station is licensed. So they're saying that this bill would have language that would prevent it. So if approved, we can start hearing cannabis ads for dispensaries or for products in various states. So like in Florida, I would be able to hear ads for like True Leaf or Grow Healthy or Sunnyside Dispensary or Harvest or whatever else is out there. That's great. If you're in Nevada, you're going to hear ads for Planet 13. If you're in California, you're going to hear ads for like MedMen and, whatever else. That's awesome. Now, there is opposition to the idea. And this is one of them is a Republican from Texas, but she's in a state that doesn't have any kind of cannabis legalization except for compassionate use, a very limited use medical marijuana program there, but they don't have much of anything. But most of the debate was bordered on other issues. But for states that have approved cannabis for medical adult use, local radio TV stations are not able to accept ads from legally authorized cannabis distributors because stations operate under the FCC license. But now competitors to local radio and TV, like cable, satellite, internet, print, magazine, billboards, and social media, are free to accept marijuana ads. And as for the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, they applauded this move. Today marks a long overdue step by finally allowing broadcasters to receive equal treatment regarding cannabis advertising that other forms of media have had for years. So the budget bill still needs to win approval by the House and Senate, and we will find out. Now, we did find out that Inside Radio reported that on June 17th, this language would open the door for broadcasters to carry cannabis ads. It was inside a proposed federal budget in the financial services and general government portion of this federal budget for the year beginning October 1st. Now, it did make its first hurdle passage when it was voted out of subcommittee on June 16th, sent to the House Appropriations Committee, which was approved last week as I recorded this. So we'll keep an eye on if the FCC is going to be denied stopping or preventing any cannabis advertising for stations. Hey, for radio, it's money you're looking for. And those cannabis companies, they have money to spend on advertising. Radio, you should beg and plead and be on your knees, hoping that Congress will push this bill across and stop the SEC for this draconian move of banning or censoring cannabis ads on the air. So keep that in mind. So much more I'll bring up next week, but like I said, I want to thank Shavo Odadjian for being on my program. And remember, you can listen to the full episode on Blunt Business coming up July 13th at cannabisradio.com. If you want to hear more of me, I'm on that show. I host that show every week. Of course, I have my other programs, Wrestling is Real podcast. That's on all the time. I got to record an episode tomorrow. This will be on Saturday night for a post show for a pay-per-view, so I'll be working all of the weekend. And of course, my Depraved and Debaucherous series, which I did an interview on that show this week with Zach Schlein, and that was where we were talking about online dating, and where if online dating is demise, where else is there to go when you still want to go online and you still want to meet people? Well, I talked to him. It's the second time I talked to him about his video dating app called Filter Off. So you can catch that over at depravedanddebaucherous.blogspot.com, or you can find a link to the show right here at broadcasterspodcast.com, where all the past episodes, links to the stories that I talk about here every week, you can find it all there, broadcasterspodcast.com, and also links to all the other stuff I do. So we're going to come back next week. We'll have all those other stories I kept. We're just going to hold them over to the following week. And until then, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.